Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Saturday's edition of the Doctor Who Daily. And today, the revival and its showrunners. I want to evaluate all the revival showrunners from RTD to Chris Chibnall. It's absolutely unique to me that we've only had 3 showrunners. And how long has the revival been going? Since 2005. So, let's get my maths right. That's nearly 20 years, isn't it? I think so. That's about 17 years now. I think it's 16, 17 years anyway since the revival. So just to have 3 showrunners since then is just about amazing to me. It really does. It really is amazing. I mean, a lot of shows go through so many showrunners, don't they? So let's look at Russell T Davies first. Russell T Davies came to Doctor Who to run it. I'd never heard of him before. Watching the marketing, I was concerned about Billie Piper because I only knew her as a pop star, and I didn't know that she'd been trained as an actress and she'd been acting already a little bit, not much. I was concerned about her, but what I wasn't concerned about was Christopher Eccleston taking on the role as the Doctor. Guessing Christopher Eccleston in is like getting an A-list Hollywood actor. I mean, he may not be as good as looking as Brad Pitt, but back then, it's the same. He'd done Hollywood movies, he'd been in Cracker, he'd done this, he'd done that. Russell had worked with him before. It was a great choice. Christopher Eccleston is a tall man. He has screen presence. And I think it's so important the Doctor has screen presence. Russell T Davies came in and gave us a modern take on Doctor Who without getting rid of what everyone loved about the Doctor in the first place, aka the TARDIS, aka the sonic screwdriver. People used to ask Russell when he was developing Doctor Who, is the TARDIS going to be a Pootaloo? And Russell always said, and he mentioned this on his first Doctor Who Confidential, no, it's going to be what it's always been, a 1960s police box, as it should be. Russell T Davies understood what to tweak, what to change dramatically, and what to leave the fuck alone. Russell T Davies was clever enough not to want to touch Doctor Who the movie too much, but say that that's a thing and that's happened, but now we move on. That was smart because that was a controversial movie, of course, but Paul McGann is a great Doctor. We've heard his great stuff on Big Finish and the movie. He's the one endearing liar from Doctor Who the movie. So Russell steered clear from that, and he did the one thing that Chibnall refuses to do, and that's don't mess with the Doctor's origins. Don't go to the origins, don't talk about the origins. Russell T Davies did something very intelligent, which many showrunners wouldn't have done. He created a kind of, not an origin story, but a legacy story for the Doctor. So, because you need something to making this kind of character. So he came up with the Time War, and I think the Time War's great because it's so mystical, isn't it? I blew up my whole planet because there was a war between the Daleks and the Time Lords, and if I didn't, the whole of creation would have been destroyed. I'm walking around, I'm travelling in this space-time ship on my own, and it's great, and it works. And he's, Eccleston plays it with this heavy burden weighing on him as well, which I really, really love. And so the Time War concept was genius, and it was a kind of concept that there were no flashbacks for. It was something you used your imagination to imagine this Doctor being in a Time War. And I mean, even the term Time War is fucking genius by Russell T Davies. With his companion Rose Tyler and her family, her extended family, not just blood relatives, Jackie, her mother, Pete, her sometimes dead dad, and Mickey, her boyfriend. These were great characters that leaped off the page, leaped off the screen. They were like people we would have met down the pub. That's something else that Russell T Davies was very good, and always has been, by the way, good at doing. They just felt like friends. What you don't want with supporting Doctor Who characters, or any supporting characters, is for them to look like intruders. And in the revival, that has happened at times with our showrunners. So he cast good people that we would like. that have good personalities, good performances, well-written, rounded characters, especially Mickey, Jackie, but Pete's great. Pete has got a little arc. Pete's dead. Then there's another version from the multiverse of Pete who ends up, staying with Jackie and Rose in the end, at the end of Rose's arc. So Pete gets his own little arc, which I think is fucking brilliant. And he's played by a really good actor as well. And the whole thing with Rose's family is genius. I always noticed this with Martha. Martha's family was there, but they were cast differently, and they weren't kind of people you would see down the pub. They didn't have that likability because we weren't allowed to get to know them. That's the point I'm getting at. I think that his first idea was to bring Catherine Tate in The Runaway Bride and have her be the season 3 companion. I did hear that the scheduling didn't work with Kathy, which was a shame. And I think so he had Martha and he came up with another idea, because I think Catherine Tate's Donna is great to come in after Rose, because she's not a young, she's not young, she's not looking for someone to fall in love with like Rose was or Martha was. She comes in after Rose. It's not a love interest. This is a mature woman. I mean, she's not that mature. She's not that older. But you know what I mean. Her motivations are so different to Rose's. And that would have been great to come into the Christmas Invasion and stay there. And she probably, if it wasn't for her scheduling, would have been there through season 3, 4, and maybe even the specials, although he probably always planned to wipe her mind. So she probably wouldn't have been in the specials that much. And she was a little bit involved in the specials, which I'm always grateful for. The Russell T Davies era did something very intelligent. It appealed to everyone. Appealing to everyone isn't just a generous thing to do for a creative, it's good business, obviously. Doctor Who, since Russell T Davies, hasn't been able to do that. With Russell T Davies' Doctor Who, you could sit there with your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your mates, and watch Doctor Who before you went down the pub. Obviously, the kids have to stay at home. Are kids allowed in pubs? They used to be. So, I don't bloody know. But anyway, this is a show that appealed to every demographic. So it was a winner. You went in and watched Russell T Davies' Doctor Who. You felt a little bit better about the world afterwards and yourself. And life was a bit dark in between the next episode, but when you got to that episode, it was great. It was, and the doctor, Russell's doctors, Chris and David, were inspirational doctors, people you'd like to hang around with. The doctor should be full of such Genevieve, should be full of personality, and someone that we all like. I think that's the problem with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. It's not a problem with Jodie Whittaker, it's the way Jodie's been told to play the Doctor. It's the way Chris has written the Doctor. It just doesn't feel real, and that's the problem. But with David Tennant and Chris Eccleston, they're definitely people you wanted to be around. They were enigmatic doctors. So Russell T Davies won every single award, and it was great. Then we heard he was leaving. Now at the time, I think we were all championing Stephen Moffat, and I know I felt this, that maybe this whole bright and inspirational Doctor Who needed to be rested, bring in Stephen Moffat and do a darker tone Doctor Who, and that's what we thought we were going to get. But that wasn't exactly what we thought we were going to get. Let's talk about Stephen Moffat's era of Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who is like this little elf who comes in, but not a good elf, a mixture of a good elf and a kind of mischievous elf. And he comes in and he takes all your Christmas baubles off the tree and he fucking stamps on them. Then he molds them with his magic to look differently and puts them back on the tree. And you think, but I don't want these baubles, I wanted the old ones, why did you break them? This is what Stephen Moffat did to Russell T Davies' Doctor Who. He came in, he didn't give us a moment to breathe, and he changed everything. He changed the aesthetic. He had to change the Doctor because he didn't have David Tennant. He thought he may be able to have David Tennant, but David wasn't up for it without Russell, and quite right too. I just think he and Moffat would have just fallen out in the end. Anyway, but I think David, being Stephen's Doctor, maybe for season 5 at least, would have been a good idea because it bridges the gap and the changes are not so dramatic. One of the problems I had from Russell to Stephen is that things are so different now. And I was so in love with what Russell did. And, that was such a big problem for me. But you got used to it. I think season 5 is a brilliant season. I think Amy is a great companion, a bit naughty and annoying at times. But yes, and we get more of River's song, and there's that arc that between her and the Doctor and how they meet in reverse order, which is great. It's got a great arc as well. I think he did a great job with season 5, but it was difficult for me because it was so dramatically different to what we've had before. And I know Doctor Who is about a franchise, about an ever-changing serial, and that's part of the problem with Doctor Who. It changes all the time, and it's hard to keep up with it. You have to keep up with the train, or you have to jump off it and hope you land on your fucking feet. And that's the problem with Doctor Who. But I think the bigger problem is that Moffat dramatically changed the show too quickly. And he would reinvent the show on a whim all the time. So you liked what he did, then he changed it. You liked what he did there, then he changed it. A bit of a problem there. Season 5 is great. I kind of enjoyed the arc of season 6, but people didn't like how much time the arc took up in the episode, so we lost the kind of standalone random police box travel thing as well, which, as I say, some people found problematic. Ultimately, Stephen Moffat had big energy and passion for Doctor Who in the first 2 seasons. When we got to season 7 and Matt was going to leave, that broke Stephen. He had lots of plans for Matt's Doctor, and then Amy left and Rory left, all those actors left, and it was look, Karen leaving, Arthur leaving, Matt leaving was a big problem for Chibnall. And even though he brought in one of the best actors in the world, Peter Capaldi, as the Doctor, which I think most of us die-hard Doctor Who fans were very excited that we were going to get an older Doctor like the original Doctor, but obviously not a good thing for the mainstream audience. Peter Capaldi will always be a great Doctor, but he will never be my Doctor, the Doctor that I enjoyed watching, not the Doctor I liked. I like him. And I like his style. I think he's a great Doctor, especially in the early season 8, when this gritty Dr. Gregory House with these sharp put-downs. I think it's great. It's when they watered him down and they let his hair grow so much. I had a bit of a problem with that. Everything started to seem old and tired then. And as we got to the end of the Peter Capaldi era, it was over. The Stephen Moffat era was over. He wanted to leave before that. He brought in Chris Chibnall. Let's evaluate the era of Chris Chibnall at the revival of Doctor Who. But before we do that, let me evaluate Stephen Moffat for a little bit longer. Stephen Moffat is a great guy, a passionate, big kid writing adventures. I like his Christmas episodes because they're so fantastical and they feel so Christmassy. We lost something huge without having a proper Christmas Day episode, which Stephen is very, very passionate about. And I remember David Tennant and Matt Smith always saying how much they love the Christmas episodes and how they're rather disappointed that there's no Christmas episodes anymore. Yes, Mr. Chibnall, they'll be coming back up under RTD, fingers crossed. But anyway, so I think Stephen Moffat was a mixed bag. He was very, very, let's say, triggering to the fans at times, but ultimately his heart was in the right place. Now to Chris Chibnall. Chris Chibnall has been around. He's done a lot of different things. He's done Law and Order UK, which he did a fabulous job with. He did Broadchurch. The first season of Broadchurch is groundbreaking, but ultimately Broadchurch is about his extreme left politics and his hatred of straight males. And so there you can see the problem. Now, the episodes he's written of Torchwood and Doctor Who aren't the most terrible episodes. I like Cyberwoman in Torchwood. Now, a lot of people don't like Cyberwoman. I think it's actually some of his best work. Some people won't agree with that. In Doctor Who, we expected the usual kind of Chris Chibnall kind of antics, but it was bigger than that. He was really going to create a paradigm shift. Now, casting a female Doctor isn't that groundbreaking, and it isn't controversial at all. For most of us. For some people it is, and they hate the idea. But because he cast a woman, he decided that this woman should be pure as the driven snow, because all women are good and all men are bad. That's what the extreme left is all about. This is why they never get anything done with the way they talk about people. They're full of, compassion and kindness, unless you're a straight white male, and that's the problem, isn't it? You can't just take a group of people and hate on them, and that's the problem with them. But anyway, We saw a lot of that in his Doctor Who. I remember there's an episode with the Doctor standing there talking about men, not being very nice about them and being frustrated with men, even though she was a man prior to being a woman, but we'll leave that little detail to the side. His Doctor Who is well produced, it looks beautiful and stunning, but there's no heart, there's no fun. And he's seen that criticism and tried to do and put some fun and stuff into Doctor Who Flux. I don't think he's a funny guy. I don't think he can write humour or comedy. And I think if you can't do it, don't do it. Just keep it serious until the end of your run. You're nearly gone now, right? Let's just keep doing what we're doing. But that's the point. Under Russell T Davies, Doctor Who was fun. It was funny. It could be serious. It could be heartbreaking. It was everything to everyone. You either have that ability or you don't. Chris Chibnall hasn't got that ability to appeal to the people he needs to appeal to. He's created a kind of somber, dour show, and it's very, very interesting to me when we talk about Chris Chibnall, because a few years ago, David Yates was tapped to do a Doctor Who origin movie. The hardcore fans went absolutely nuts, and Stephen Moffat, I believe, was the one that stopped BBC America from doing it after threatening to quit. They needed him, they couldn't afford that. So that never happened. So Chris Chibnall, in his arrogance, decided to do his own Doctor Who origin story. No hardcore fan has ever asked for a Doctor Who origin story, but if you're going to give this Doctor an origin story, make sure it's something that can stick and we can refer back to as Pride. Ultimately, we can't do that with this. It's going to be like the thing in Doctor Who, the movie. I may have mentioned it on yesterday's Doctor Who Daily, like the Doctor being half human. You know, that's something we think about and think, oh, yeah, right, and just move on from. And the Timeless Children will be the same thing, where it will just be, by the way, who are the Timeless Children? There's a Timeless Child, right, but who are the Timeless Children? I still don't get it. Maybe we'll find out about that. And so we discuss what he's doing with this origin story and kind of the concluding part of this story. It's not very original. It basically is about a bad dad, if that's where they're going with this. And it's typical extreme left, it's typical Chibnall. It's just another excuse to bash on a male character. Or the male, you know, the male population out there. And that's a shame. And so that's what we've got. And ultimately, no one wanted an origin story for the Doctor. Nobody asked for the origin of an origin story of the Doctor. And what do we do with that going forward? Because I don't think they're going to cancel this. So, in terms of success, I think Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who kind of plodded along, by hook or by crook, at times, but did okay. But it was really Russell T Davies' Doctor Who. It was his idea to bring Doctor Who back, to revive it, to keep it as the Doctor Who it's always been, but kicking and screaming in the modern era. He's a genius. He made it work, but once he left, it became a bad impression of itself. I hope with the return of Russell T Davies, we can see the enjoyment of all these different people from these different walks of life sitting down on the sofa on a Saturday night together, enjoying Doctor Who again. This has been the Doctor Who Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more Doctor Who Daily. We'll be previewing, what's it called? Once Upon Time. I can't wait to be talking about that. And I can't wait to see the episode on Monday morning so I can review it on Monday's edition of the Doctor Who Daily. But until tomorrow, goodbye.